everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Justin Sliva. Since 2016, Justin Sliva has been involved as a raw land real estate investor, buying $36 million in off-market real estate in 42 states. He has flipped properties from a $50 purchase price to projects that ran in the multiple seven figures. Tapping into his previous experience as an executive in the rail industry, he has brought the same mentality of reducing variability and risk and streamlining processes to increase profitability. Founding and co-founding companies in the land niche such as Land Mule, Plum Investment Group, and Casual Fridays Media, he has helped in both providing quality rural land for customers, but has helped and taught over 475 clients through paid training and joint ventures. The mentoring aspect has helped establish his name as an expert in the raw land investing niche, where he has been an expert guest on over 35 podcasts and spoken at multiple events for real estate investors. You can find his book, Coffee Money Real Estate Investing, on Amazon, a book that takes a no-fluff approach to buying and selling tax-defaulted properties. Listen to his weekly podcast, Casual Fridays REI, with more than 433 episodes and is distributed in 120 countries. Justin, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Kendall, doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I've wanted to have you on as a guest for quite some time now, so super excited that you're joining us. And so welcome to OnlyLandFans.
Man, I love the name of the show. Like, it's from the first time I saw it, I was like, man, Kendall's onto something here. And I said that before while we were kind of in the just me and you talking kind of prior to this, but it's just great to see the marketing piece to that because it makes me smile every time.
Awesome. I love it. And that's the whole thing, right? You got to have a hook. So
yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. Let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about how did you get started investing in land deals?
So I'll kind of back it up a little bit before that. When I worked in rail, we had an aggressive moving package. And so I was flipping houses and I called it a corporate sponsored flipping program. And so every year I was moving and I was learning to comp and buy houses and try to work on that as we went. And so every time we moved, we got paid. And the cool thing with that was they paid our closing cost if we sold it. And then they gave us a bonus if we sold it within 60 days. So you had to learn how to comp your houses before with a little bit of work, knowing that you could sell within 60 days and make a little extra money. So by doing that, I ended up at a smaller railroad, 2016. My co-host on Casual Fridays, Adam Southey, he's telling me he's getting into this land business. We have an Amazon fulfillment company, and he says, I want to liquidate and get into land. And I said, okay, cool, let's do that. And he goes, no, I want to do it by myself. I don't want to do it with you. And I said, oh, okay, well, that works. And then about a month later, he started getting all these 5-acre properties for $500. And I was like, dude, if you can get me 5 acres for $500, I will buy every one of those you can bring. And he's like, nah, man, just do it yourself. At the time, I was a chief operating officer. We called it a general manager because it was a short line railroad, but for lack of a better term, chief operating officer. And my wife was like, yeah, I could possibly do that. And so we kind of played with some tax default properties and getting ready to send out our first mailer. We sent out our first mailer, and that was early 2017. And the hate we got back was so great. She said, I don't want to touch it. And so now I've spent money on marketing. I've got properties in the hopper. And my partner, my wife at the time, did not want to do it. So I jumped in then and was doing both the railroad job and land investing at that time.
Wow. And so you got started actually in the land space by doing tax defaulted properties. Is that right?
Well, so coastal properties. And that's what kind of the book was about when we wrote Coffee Money Real Estate. I think that was 2018, 2019. We kind of went step by step with that, but that was off of the experiences of 2016, 2017, and moving on forward from there. So it started there for a couple properties, proved the concept to sell them. And then we did our first mailer in Brewster County, Texas. And I love that county because it's in the middle of nowhere. You live in an ambulance out there sometimes. Like, that's who you meet when you go out there. And for $125 an acre, I was buying as much land as I possibly could want, putting them on terms. And it really changed my life just because of that little area.
That's incredible. $125 an acre. I know everyone's antenna has just gone straight up wanting to know, okay, Brewster County, going to check $125 an acre. My gosh. So Can you talk to us a little bit about what your first deal was like? This is take us back to you're doing your very first land
Ooh,
deal. This is proof of concept.
yeah.
What was that like?
I'm going to go back to the first deal that came off of like direct mail, because that was probably, well, I don't want to go back that far either. I want to go back to the first property that was kind of cultivated what the business did for me. Because I think everybody can talk about the first few properties. Your first 10, you're kind of trying to figure it out.
Right.
We talk about a property type called the bass boat property, and meaning it's a property about the value of what a bass boat, an RV, a Harley Davidson, a second hot rod. It's that property that you go and brag about on Monday because you're out at your property over the weekend when you're office boy. And so I had bought some properties in Brewster. A couple didn't have access, and I got freaked out because I'm on my own now. I'm working full time, and I'm like 4 months into this land flipping thing. I don't know if it's going to work, but I said, okay, I need to figure this out with a little bit of logic. And so I said, I'm going to take 2 to 3 hours outside of Fort Worth where we live, put a radius around it, and I priced every county inside that radius. And then I started at the cheapest county and worked my way down. And what I found was there was really consistent pricing in some recreational properties in LaFleur County, Oklahoma. And when I did that, everything was selling right at $1,000 an acre. And I said, you know what the hell? I'm going to send $300 an acre offers out and see what I get back. So I mailed everybody. And when I mean everybody, the abstract office, the lady that owned it, still hates me to this day because I sent her a $300 an acre offer on her family's property that's been in their life since the Indians were there. And so she has a mutual respect, but at the same time, she called, cussed me out. I got the sheriff called on me, and I had the local news called. And so I had to talk to the sheriff, and I told him, I said, man, you can't put an ad in the paper that I'm a scam because I'm really buying properties. And so we ended up buying 6 properties in that county at that time. And so everything sold for right at $1,000 an acre. We paid $300 an acre. We sold a total of about 400 acres in our first 3 months there. And we had a couple bigger tracts, some 40s, some 20s, some 10s. The biggest one was a 135 acre tract. And so that county right there cultivated what we built the blueprint on for Casual Fridays. After that, I said, I can do this anywhere. So that was that aha moment for me. Like before at Brewster, it was, okay, I'm making really good money. Buying for 125, selling for 400. That kind of arbitrage is nice, but that wasn't what really changed the business for me. So that price point, making $700 an acre on a quality product, really changed the business for me. And that 135 acre property, I bought it, and it was one of those ones that the mail just came back. You read the letter, and the guy goes, hey, I've tried to reach out. I haven't heard back. I want to sell it. My brother's dead. My other brother wants to sell. Give us $45,000 for it. And so here I am buying a 135 acre ranch. I'm cashing out of a retirement from one of the railroads to pay for it. And then I take that and I buy that and flip it. And I go to the neighbor's house because he had a lease on it. And it's like 3rd generation lease. And I walk up to his door, and this is a fun story. I'm not small. I'm 235 pounds. So I walk up to his door. He pulls a gun on me. And so I say, hey, hold on. My gun's in the truck. Let me go get it, and we can do it really fun. And he stops. He goes, what? And I said, my gun's in the truck. I just want to go look at the neighbor's land for the family. And he kind of laughed. I kind of chuckled. He still had the gun in the hand. And so he's like, oh, yeah, go. But I'm supposed to have first right of refusal. I said, great. Do you want to buy it? They're going to sell it for $250,000. And he goes, no, but my son might. And I said, cool, give your son my number. He didn't know I already purchased the property, and I was using the family's name. His son ended up buying the property for me. So I bought it for 45 grand, sold it to the son for 175, and then wrote in the deed that I have full access to hunt for the rest of my life on the property. And he agreed to it to get it at that price. And so at that moment, it's a different business. When you make, a 6-figure deal happen and you're 3 or 4 months into this, your business isn't the same. You see it differently. And so that area alone was that moment that said, okay, this is not a side hustle. This is something that we can really generate money with. And it's not at a high risk point. And so like Brad DeGraw said, when he said I fund deals, around 50 grand, that $10 to $15 to $20,000 purchase price that sells for 20 to 30 to 40,000, it doubles and gets 2.5 times, 3 times. You can make an extremely good living off that. And so me in my head was going, well, I can't alienate that business. That business is too profitable, because how many people and parents really make 20 grand a month off selling one deal. You're chasing
Right.
deals. How can I put 2 or 3 deals? How do I get to where I'm at today, where we're doing a deal every 5 days? And that's the thought process that I think all of us want, is how do we take it from, one deal a quarter to one deal a month to one deal a week to, can I get to one deal a day? And then if we're doing that, do we have the team? Can we do it as lean as possible, but have the team in place to do it? So, that was asking to answer your question. It wasn't one of the first properties that it changed the life for me. It was 3 to 4 months in and putting that together for what we call the bass boat, because I still stand by this today. I can go 2 to 3 hours out of every major metro area and buy something at 35 cents to 40 cents on the dollar and continue to make that kind of margin.
That's absolutely incredible. I love that idea of the bass boat property, because it puts the buyer and the type of buyer, the type of customer sort of at the center. And I feel like that does a really good job of kind of guiding like what types of deals you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely incredible. It sounds like you had a pretty significant jump from the first types of deals that you started doing to the type of deal that you're now doing.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about exactly what does that model look like? So like, let's say someone is listening to this for the very first time. They've heard a little bit about land flipping, but they don't really know. Can you explain what your model looks like? Were you self-closing on these properties? How are you funding these deals? What did that look like?
So the fun part about this is, as you go through this business, you see the things that kind of hold you up. At that time, I was self-funding everything. I didn't self-close. The stuff in Brewster, I was self-closing. But really quickly, I started to feel like I was building this house of cards. And so for us, we send out a bunch of direct mail. I send postcards and range letters. I'm transparent about that. I'll tell you what I offer, and I told you what kind of marketing I have. There's no secret there. We have a sequence we like to follow. We have certain branding, and we have certain areas we like to shop because they hit our avatar that we want. Currently, we send direct mail. It goes out to that avatar. We try to get them with a softer offer. It's not a blind offer anymore where it was hard and rigid like it was at that time. We said, hey, we want to buy some property. If you want to sell, reach out to us and let's make a deal. And so it's not a neutral, because we try to anchor some of the offer with that range, but we open up the conversation. The cool thing is in 2020, we started doing some simple subdivides and land splits. And what we found was that I can pay a little bit more if the property lays out well and I can split it. So everybody, when they hear Justin subdivision, they think some of the bigger ranches we've done, but they don't think about us buying the 20 acre and making it 3.7s or some 6.5s or 5s. And so our marketing strategy is we get them to call us with the direct mail, and we start working on an offer, whether it's going to be a straight flip or where it's going to be a subdivide. And then we get it bought through title. Title, takes anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, unless you're working with Jason, and it could take years. But we have a deal that's gone a long time, Kendall. So, he's one of the audience people, for those that can't see him. So we go with a broker on the backside. We can list everything. We have lands accounts. We have that ability. But we go to a broker so we can only focus on the acquisitions and churning of the deal. For me, my mindset on this is I want to acquire as many assets as I can at an undervalued price. Meaning if I can buy as much land that I think is at 30, 40 cents on the dollar, my net worth goes up. So I'm playing the game against my net worth, my personal financial statement, not how much land can I churn, because that's going to happen. You're going to sell it, and that's where you realize your profit. But the sole focus for me and my team is how many deals can we get done and how many deals can I be a part of? And that's where the funding part comes in. And then if people are exiting and they need owner financing, how many of those notes can I buy? And I want to gather all that up at pennies on a dollar, 50 cents on a dollar, 40 cents on a dollar assets, and keep all those assets to Justin Inc., if you will.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. So it sounds like you're doing you're doing a mixture of some notes. You're creating owner finance situations. You're doing subdivisions. You're doing large flips. And are you are you using funding or lending on those properties? Or are you doing that self-funding?
Hey, land fans, looking for your tribe of serious land investors?
Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the Only Land Fans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at onlylandfansgroup.com and join the conversation today. That's onlylandfansgroup.com. See you there.
Yeah, so we self-fund every one of our flips. We do bring on partners and capital raises and debt with banks on big subdivides. So like, for instance, we have one right now. It was a 2.4 million purchase price. We've got it on the market as a whole without being split at 2.8 as the county goes ahead and splits it. And we're on a docket next Monday to do that. And we have 3 partners in on it. Everybody's got a couple $100,000 in on it. And then we pay annualized payments on it at low interest rate. And so we're continually rolling through that. So it's a mixture of both. Most of our cash is our cash. We don't bring on private money. And this is kind of unofficially official, if you will. We've been approved by the SEC. Our funding stuff is in the background, is all done. Now the back end of our interface is done. Now we're about 3 weeks out to having our fund. It's called Pasture Holdings to be live. And that's with Trevor Probant and Josh Biesinger. You'll see those names kind of float around the land niche, but 2 great guys that, want to get cheaper capital out there for everybody. So that's kind of the next venture that's coming.
That's fantastic. So can you talk to us a little bit about what were some of the biggest challenges that you had in doing deals that you would consider a step up from what you were used to doing? So you talked about doing sort of like these smaller deals, and then now you went up to doing some 6-figure deals. So what were some of the biggest challenges around that?
So going to the 6-figure deal, I think the hardest thing is the mindset shift you have to get over. When you get into like a buy for 20 and sell for 40 or 50 or 60, that price point sub 50 grand, there is a lot of deals to be had at that 3x multiplier. You can make 3 times on your money. When you start getting over that and you get into 100 grand, you're not really working on a 2x or a 3x multiplier. You start working on a percentage basis. And I think that you have to become okay with that on some of those deals. Now, the question for me, or how I look at that and I made that shift mentally, was if I take $100,000 deal and it's worth 200, so it's a 2x or 190, it's 90% on my cash on cash. If I do it, do I have a lever to pull, like a line of credit, to where my cash doesn't all get wrapped into it? Do I have easy debt that I can pick up and still keep the cash on cash return high enough to where it seems like something I want to have? And so when you ask what's the hardest thing, it's getting that mindset and knowing that you can walk into a bank and say, hey, I'd like to get a line of credit, or go on and look up business lines of credit that will go to your bank account and say, okay, hey, this guy's had money coming in and out for the last 7 years at this rate. He's good for it, and that was the biggest mindset shift for me to get over that hurdle, was being okay with taking on a little bit of debt versus just saying, hey, I can only do it if I have the cash. I can only do it if I have the cash. Because it's easy to say, hey, if I have 10 grand or I have 100 grand and it's a 10 grand deal, I can fund that. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. But it's a little bit more difficult to say, hey, I've got 100 grand, but I need $1 million loan. Am I okay with taking that? And that first time you sign on a 7-figure loan, it's a different feeling. It's nerve-wracking, to say the best.
Wow. Yeah, I can just about imagine. So if someone's listening to this and they've been operating in that 3x multiplier range of deals, but they really want to do these large $1 million deals, what would you say to someone who is on the fence about doing that? They may be a little bit hesitant or have some anxiety around that.
So I'm very risk adverse, meaning I'm super conservative. If you've ever looked at a deal with me or you watched me underwrite a deal, you know that I come in at 85% on what we're seeing on comps, and I'm really, really dial that in. What I would tell somebody that's going to come into a big deal where they're going to carry a lot of debt, make sure, the numbers really make sense. If you need somebody else to look at it, get a second opinion of somebody that understands the business, not just a yes man or a yes girl. Just say, hey, you need to understand it. If you're going to take on debt, the bank will do an appraisal as well. So you have that second set of eyes, but make sure you have the money to carry the deal for 2 years. Meaning when we raise capital for our big subdivides, we raise a year's interest up front and we have an annualized payment. So we can carry into year 2 with no problems. We don't have to worry about it. We just have to run the playbook, get it cut up, get the utilities in, get the roads cut, and get it on the market as quick as we can, but know that we have that running room just in the event. So the thing is it's easy to sign your name and take the debt on, but making sure you have the capital to carry that. And so that's where it gets a little bit tricky. And I would tell, if you're going to get ready for that, you need to go in and clean house, clean your closet out, sweep the corners, and make sure you have everything you need in place and you feel comfortable with what the deal is you're looking at.
That's really fantastic advice. So if someone is, let's say that, they're listening to this and they heard you say that you like to partner on deals, that there's a good amount of collaboration to be had, especially in these larger deals in the land space. Mm-hmm. How would someone go about, finding JV opportunities or finding opportunities to partner with people, especially if they're sort of newer to the space?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, when we first started Plum, we were one of the first, if not the first, to say, hey, I will fund your deal without knowing you. It'll be based off just the deal itself. And we got out in the podcast worlds and got into the groups, and we're doing that. And that was in 2018. At that time, there may have been a handful of people that funded deals. Right now, you can get on what's fundmyland.com, or it was Marcus Brown started it way back in the day. And there's probably 60 funders on there. So you're going to have to get your name out there, get your words out there, the word out there that, hey, I'm willing to put money up on these deals. When you're talking about JVing on a deal, when we partner and capital raise on these deals, usually it's with people that we like working with, we trust. Like I mentioned, Jason, we have we've done a few deals together where we either JV'd and covered the funds, or we've gone in with debt with them and we've brought in some of the capital on the front end as an equity partner. And so, there's multiple ways to do it. And but it's really based on your relationships and actually letting people know that you're willing to do these deals.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Let me ask, where do you see the market going now, and how do you plan to pivot, or how have you pivoted to adjust to the market to make sure that you're thriving in sort of this newer market cycle?
Man, it's a great question. We've come off the hottest couple years in land I think that anybody's ever seen, with if you look at the historical charts of what land value has done over the last 2 years. So coming into that, we got to know it's gonna come back a little. There's gonna be a little bit of a drawback, but does it go all the way back? I don't know. So one of the things that I've kind of said publicly, and I said it started with the masterclass. Adam brought it up on our podcast because he liked it so much. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And so when you do a deal and you look at it, if you're not going hell yes, this is a home run, then it's probably a hell no. And there's a big asterisk that gets left off of that a lot. And that asterisk is, what price is it a hell yes? And then that's what the question you've got to ask yourself. And what do I need to do to make this a hell yes? And if you can do that, you're going to weather this storm. I mean, if we see a 20% reduction in price across the board today, we all bought our property well enough to know that 20% reduction didn't affect us. We're still making 80, 90%. One of the things that we've really focused on is buying more notes. So having more long money versus short money, and then offering that owner finance on a product that we buy at 30 or 40 cents on a dollar. If we can have the owner finance in place on a quality asset that they're putting $10,000, $15,000 down on, we're seeing that work as well. So we're kind of taking the model of just cash flips, get as much as we can right now, but putting a little bit longer money in it.
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Now, let me ask you this question. Coming off of such a hot market that we've seen, in land, A lot of people in the land space are talking about how sellers have these crazy expectations for how much their properties are worth. You're talking about buying properties that are 30, 40 cents on the dollar. And I can hear the voices in my head of some of the people that I've talked to saying, oh, there's no deals like that out there right now.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people? And how do you educate your owners, and how do you go about getting the prices that you need for those properties?
So one of the good things about the hot market that nobody really mentions is the values went up so fast that a lot of the sellers don't know really what the value is. Your seller is not watching it every day. He's not in the market, because if he was, he'd have a broker out there listing it. We've always, from day one, I don't care who has an argument to this, I'll squash it right here, right now. We are shopping an opportunity. Every one of us are looking for somebody that needs to sell quickly, doesn't want it, and we're just trying to get them the cash and make it as seamless as possible. So, we had a deal come in it's Southern Oklahoma. I want to say it was Haskell County. It may be LaFleur here recently. And the guy goes, hey, I want $2,200 an acre. Property's worth $2,200 an acre. Property's worth $3,500 an acre in this market. He inherited it in some 1977. And so at that time, it was worth $400 an acre. Does he know the market value? Not really, but he also doesn't know that I'm going to put a cul-de-sac right down the middle of it and it's 47 acres, and I'm going to make it a bunch of 6 and 8 acre tracts it's got 2 tanks on it. So that cul-de-sac, it gets cut up. I run power right down the middle. Now I've got owner finance deals that are going to sell at $50,000 a pop to people out of Fort Worth. So can I pay him his $103,000 an acre, or $103,000 for this that he wants? Yeah. That property was right next to the same property I talked about earlier, the 135 acre that I paid 45 grand for. So I'm paying 2.5 times what I paid for 135 acres for 40. But since I have the tool in place to force that appreciation, I'm going to make more money on this one deal, all in.
Yes, that makes total sense. Fantastic. Love that. So can you talk a little bit about what you have found to be the most important skills to be successful in the land industry?
Wow. So there's a couple that I'll hit on. One of the things is you have to be fluid, and you have to be fluid in that this market is shifting, it's changing. What happened a year ago is not going to happen today. So you have to look at each deal as it comes to your desk. But the most important skill, in my opinion, is, can I drive leads to my desk? Not, am I really good at direct mail? Am I really good at text message? Am I really good at cold calling? It doesn't matter. I need to drive leads. And how do I drive leads back to Justin or to Kendall? What are we doing to get these leads to us? And that's the biggest thing I think most people have problems with. And that's why you hear the rumblings of 40 cents on a dollar where it doesn't work, 30 cents doesn't work, because all they did was send out a letter that said 30 cents on a dollar. And they didn't look at their letter. It could be shit. It could be the same letter that all 200 other people. They didn't test the envelope. They didn't look at a deal that came back, or they didn't even respond because the response rate's so low because the person seemed mad when they called Pat Live or seemed mad on their voicemail. So what we have to do as a whole in this niche is figure out how to drive leads to you. Now, I'm going to take a step back even further. There's a reason why I fund deals. Colin Case, I see him on here. He funds deals. Brad DeGraw, he funds deals. Is because that's a lead to Justin. Because at the end of the day, I'm playing against my scoreboard of how am I putting my money to work to make more money on land, the quality asset that we all love. You can't run away. So what is the leads coming back to Justin that I can put money into? And whether that's a funded deal, that's me sending direct mail, that's me sending a text message, that's me going on lands.com to look at something that's on market that I can force appreciation on. So all those are leads coming into Justin. You have to have that skill without a doubt. That is the number one skill, no matter what.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's not just the single fishing line that is, a single marketing channel out there. Right? It's how do you cast that net to get as many leads as possible. Right. That's fantastic. So can you talk a little bit let's talk about some nuts and bolts. So how do you go about picking a target area to find deals in? You mentioned earlier how you price counties and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more about picking a target area and how you evaluate that target area?
So this year I'm trying something a little bit different. If you've listened to some of the stuff from into last year with our podcast, you heard me say, hey, I bought a tractor. And so I put an operator on a tractor in Royce City. And so right now we are going heavy marketing 200 square miles outside of Royce City. This hits my avatar of outside of major metros. It hits my 2 to 3 hours out of major metros. It hits my avatar of recreational land. It hits my avatar. My data set doesn't live next to the land, doesn't live in the county. I have owned it for a little while. It's a non-LLC. So I have the same avatar of when I'm selecting whatever on the data set, but I have it there just because I have a tractor there. Now you're like, Justin, there's no rhyme or reason to that. I talked about the avatar. The avatar is that 2 to 3 out of major market areas. I told you I can do that anywhere. We can all do that anywhere. I have that there because he goes out and cleans up every property so that mom and dad can drive onto the property with their kid, open the doors, walk all the way around the car and not get scratched up or get chiggers. And they may happen to find a picnic table there so they can sit down and talk about how beautiful it is to be out in the country. And so for $1,200, I have created an experience that they were wanting to have and why they're there looking at land in the first place. So to say, what's your target market? My target market is based on where I have a team. Now I can do that anywhere, but I have this guy right here. So we're working through every one of those counties. In 200-mile radius, when you talk Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, I've got a shit ton of counties to go through. And that's what we have to work through.
That is fantastic. And so how deep do you get into the market research in terms of, number of active listings, number of sold properties? How deep do you get into that data before you decide, okay, I'm going to mail to this target area?
And our guests that are listening in didn't hear our conversation at the beginning where I told you I'm not going to give you a silver bullet because there's not one. It's really simple. We're sending out marketing and driving leads back to us. So we're looking for the opportunity in our area. So we know that when we price a county, you're pricing it based on market value. So there's a market value, there's a static price there. We're trying to buy the asset for underneath that. It needs to have good access, which we run it through one of our companies, propertyaccess.io, which scrubs out non-access properties. We check it to make sure it's non-flood zone, non-wetland, make sure the topo is good, the basic stuff. But when it comes down to the data, one of the things I think is a pitfall for our niche is we have some brilliant people here, and they are almost so smart that they want to automate and put an algorithm in that's going to pick every property right at the right time with a click of a button, with some easy button that magically puts deals on their desk. And what we have to remember is there is a person on the other end of the direct mail, the text message, and we are trying to buy the opportunity from them. So that was a long way to answer your question, Kendall. I don't go into, hey, I had a guy tell me one time, he goes into census poverty reports. If people are 22% under the poverty line in that county, he knows that he can find deals. But if they're 22.5%, that the meth or drug problems in that county are too bad. And so I ask, is it causation or correlation? Does it really make sense? Or does it just happen to be that you mailed 10 counties and got a good response rate and it was at 22? And then when you went to 25, you got a bunch of meth heads. So you have to ask yourself what we're really doing here and how we direct those leads back to us.
For sure. That makes total sense. And so talking about directing those leads, I'd like to dig a little bit more into that. Okay. So, you mentioned direct mail. Can you talk about your marketing? Is it only direct mail? Do you also do text? Do you do cold calling? What is your approach to marketing, and talk about how you drive those leads?
Yeah, for our land business, we run since we're working a tight area, if we have never worked the county or the state, we will put in, just run out some postcards real quick just to get some feedback. We start with a range letter, and then 6 weeks later, we follow up with a postcard. So while we go through, our course talks about using direct mail, using a blind offer or a range letter, using the 2-panel envelope because it looks like a bill and people are going to open it. Right now, we have so much mail going out that people are getting marketing fatigue. If you see land whatever in the return address and it's a 2-pane envelope, it's an offer coming in. I mean, we all get them from other land investors because we buy and sell land. So we're not getting to get our pitch in front of the potential person there, whether they want to sell or not. They already know what it is. They just throw it out. And that doesn't mean they don't want to sell. They're just not getting the pitch from the right way. They've opened too many of them at 10 cents on a dollar or priced horribly. So we send the letter. And if we get right now, our response rate, all in, good and bad, used to be between 2 and 5%. If I hit 2% on a mail campaign, I was happy. And then up to 5%. Usually I knew after that it was dead. Right now it's about 1%, but we close a property for every 2,700 pieces of mail we send out because we shop that avatar. Our data set matches that. And then when I go back and follow up the same list 6 weeks later with my postcard, it gets the same response rate. And so it gets the same response and same close rate. So that's the important thing is, response rate kind of told me something, but my response rate has fallen off so much. But the close rate, it used to be 1 for 900. Right now it's about 1 for 27. And it's been that way for the last 10 months. And so we have a set amount. We send out 7,500 pieces of mail every month. And we're set up to text message, but we haven't needed to. We haven't got to where we were like, okay, hey, let's turn this on too. So we have it set up. We did it a little bit end of last year. And then I made some personnel changes. And now we just haven't turned it on because we're doing the other stuff and it works well.
That's excellent. So you mentioned about, you're looking for opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And so can you talk a little bit about the customer experience that these owners have with your company or what you try to create with your company in terms of?
I think that when we say the opportunity, I look at what the majority of what we buy and who we buy from, meaning who is the person that's going to sell to me? Who is the 85% of the time I'm getting? If I told, and I'll say this, and I'll say, hey, I don't mail LLCs. There's going to be at least half the people listening to this right now and go, well, I've gotten a great deal from an LLC. That's great. I have too. But when I looked at over 200,000 pieces of mail that I sent out and the first 200 properties I bought, who did I buy from? And so when it's 90% this one type of data set, why wouldn't I focus my marketing money on that versus trying to catch the unicorn over here? I'm not going to say, hey, your way's wrong. I'm not going to say that. It's your money, burn it, do what you want to do with it. But what I am going to say is, for me and my background, it's how do I streamline, cut waste? Our most expensive thing we do is send out a 60-cent piece of mail. That's the most expensive thing we do. Now, if I can move that out, like little things like going through your legal description on your data set and looking for undivided interest. If you don't know how to clear an undivided interest or what it's worth, why are you mailing it? And so if you can spend 20 minutes and knock out 200 things that you're about to spend 58 cents on, why not do that? Now that we're talking, I'm stepping over pennies to pick up dollars or whatever the term is, it's the idea of what we need to focus our marketing on, because we're looking again for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's super smart, and going deep in what works for you and having that specific avatar. You mentioned avatar several times throughout the interview. So it sounds like there's a lot of intention based on what you're doing. And I think that makes all the difference. So you mentioned earlier about creating notes in owner finance. Can you talk a little bit about what your process is for that? How do you analyze a deal for that? How do you create those terms? What are the terms that you like? All of the things when it comes to owner finance.
Kendall, I am probably the dumbest guy in this room because I keep it super simple. I want 20% down and I'll finance it up to 15 years at 10% interest. It is the simplest thing I can ever do. What I have found for our business, and I'm sure some other people, if they actually look back at their data, they'll see the same thing. But if I can get over $12,000 on a down payment, I have a zero default rate. And so if it's the 99 down, 99 a month type property, those people are the biggest headaches I've ever had to deal with. And so when we say, what are you going to owner finance? What are you not? I will owner finance any property I put on the market. Those are my terms. No questions asked. And the reason is because I like the asset. I wouldn't buy it if I didn't like the asset. Remember, hell yeah or hell no. It's a hell yeah. I want to keep control of the dirt with that instrument there and grow that money back. And the counteractive to that is, well, Justin, I don't have enough cash. to hold a bunch of notes. I'm going to run out of cash and deploy it. That's why when we started Plum, we'll buy the note from you as a partner. There's not a lot of guys that'll say up front, hey, in our investment agreement, you do it with us. You have the option to own or finance a property. We tell you what our note terms are. We pay you at closing your portion back out because we want to generate the note, because we wouldn't have took the deal if we didn't think it was a hell yes. So it's really simple. There's no science to it. There's no trick. Now, if I'm going to buy notes, I look at about an 18 to 20% yield is what I try to buy them at. I make sure that they're the same type of assets I want to deal with. There's a lot of guys that are running great big note portfolios right now, and they need cash as it's slowing down. I'm getting a lot of calls on that, and that's I love those type of deals, especially if it's a good product and it's got decent payments and they put decent down payments on it, or they're seasoned pretty well. It's great for us to get into those type deals. And one of the sections in our fund that we have is a debt section that will be solely for that. That's just going to generate cash flow. It helps buy at closing. We'll buy them at closing for you. We bought this last month, I think I bought $500,000 in notes at the closing table. So the person got paid right then and their business kept going. And we just took the instrument at day one. So
wow.
We're willing to do that.
That is very cool. Very cool. Now, just talked a little bit about, buying notes. Do you ever buy properties on terms?
Have I ever bought a property on terms? Well, anytime I take bank leverage, it's on a term of sort, but I haven't had anybody seller finance a deal to me. I see John Jasniak on here, and he's done that a ton. We've had him speak at our live event, which, shameless plug, tickets are on sale for that right now. There's about 30 left right now. So we're 70% sold out. And it's at Ballpark in Arlington. But so I've made the offer, but we've never come to terms with it. So we go to the bank and just get the bank and get the cash and buy it cheaper, because we'll make a higher offer for them to hold the note for us. But most people, when they see like that cash in front of them, they tend to move quicker than just holding that note. They don't understand it. And that's the good and the bad with dealing with some people that have been like 4th-generation cattle farmer, or cattle rancher. You're just kind of like, well, what do you, they get the opportunity to have $3 million in their hand, or you give them an instrument worth 4. They're like, I'd rather the 3. Let's go, baby. It's all gonna go away. So
got it. Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, you mentioned a little bit about on the dispo side that you have an agent that typically dispose your properties. So what are some things, I know that a lot of people have tried, listing with real estate agents for dispo. Do you have any tips about what you look for in an agent? I know that there are some people that have very specific land specialty agents. How do you go about doing that?
So if they have a suit in their picture, I don't hire them. They're not going to be the guy that goes out in dirt. And I've always shopped I've bought all over the country. And so the good thing is I have realtors I've worked with all over the country. And so if they don't list that specific area, they have a guy that they feel comfortable recommending you to. Like, I got a guy in Tennessee, like he'll do most of the state for me, but if he won't go there, he has a guy that he'll put me in touch with, but he doesn't want to mess up the relationship with me because we've done 15 or 20 deals together. So he's like, Justin, yeah, this is the guy I would use there. I can list it for you. I'm just not going to be able to get out there and show it like I know you want. In Oklahoma, we have a lady there. I think she sold, between my deals and JV deals, she's probably sold 100+ properties for me. And she doesn't understand why I keep hiring her, because her paperwork's a mess. She is I don't know if she got on here. She said she might get on here, but she has been she's a great agent. If I put somebody in the car with her, she sells them the property, and she will drive them to all her properties before she lets them leave. But wow. She is that quintessential. She carries a 410 judge on her hip. It's like a snake charmer, basically a 410 pistol on her hip to shoot bears and snakes. But she is just like the sweetest lady in the world. And she sells the shit out of property for me. And I won't ever leave her, but she will tell me if she won't get to it. And so I have to find somebody so when I have to go find a new person, no suit, I call them. If they don't answer and I leave a voicemail and they don't call me back same day, I don't hire them because they're not answering their calls. They're not answering leads. I'll send a text too to see if they text. Usually if they'll answer text right then, most of the time it's pretty good. But I try to use previous relationships and network off their network and piggyback off that. Now I've had that burn me a couple of times. Like I had one in Arkansas we've got listed right now. guy that I used to work with, he usually work with there. He says, hey, it's a little bit outside of mine, but I have a girl there. She does great. Same, it's a Mossy Oak office. I go to her. She passes me off to her son because it's a $40,000 property. Now, he's still green. He doesn't know how to tell if it's an easement or, what the access looks like. And you can send him the title commitment. He doesn't know how to copy and paste. He's like, hey, here's a title commitment. Here's what you're looking for. Well, what does that really mean? Well, that's your access. It's saying that the road comes through the corner of the property. Oh, okay. So, there's sometimes you do get burned in that. But like I said, no suit. They answer their phone. And then I look at their listings. Like I'm calling them off their listings. And if their listings look good to me, I'm seeing this. They don't know that I'm already judged every one of their listings that I can see that have sold and been listed. And then the second piece, and this is the most obvious, and I probably should have led with it, is that when I'm comping a property after I'm buying it, and I'm going through and I look at who sold all the properties, I say to my head as I'm going through, I was like, oh, Mossy Oak. Okay, 3 Mossy Oaks. Is it the same guy? Oh, that's Jared. Okay, cool. Jared's the guy in this town, and he sold everything recently. And then that's the first guy I call. So there's not too much rocket science, but it's just using the network that we have in place, and B, looking at who's actually listing good looking listings, answering their phone, and somebody we'll work with at that point.
Yeah, that's really fantastic advice. So if someone is new to the space, trying to figure out, it seems like there could be a million different things that can try to take your attention in the land business. So what would you consider to be some of the most important, critical, needle moving actions to take daily as a newbie?
Generate leads and look at property. I can't get over that enough. If you want to look at a person that's successful in any real estate niche, is they have leads driven to them, whatever way they can. They're looking at deals nonstop. You could take 2 people in an office, and one guy does, $500,000 a year in revenue. The other guy does $12 million a year revenue. The guy that's doing 12 million in revenue, he's looking at deals nonstop every day. The guy does $500,000. He looks at a deal when he wants to. It happens. I work 3 days a week. You have to be looking at deals, and I don't care how you look at them. You have to be looking at them that you can buy, and make sure that you see that you can get something for under what it's worth and then sell it for more.
That's it.
That's it, man. It's simple. I wish it was a CRM that had an easy button that did all this stuff for us. And we oftentimes get hung up in this notion of this new way, but people have been buying and selling land forever. And whether the queen gave it to them and then they sold it to their cousin, way back in the day, or we stole it from somebody, then we started parceling it off and selling it back in, the 1700s. It's how can you look at deals that you can buy for less and sell for more? It's that simple.
That is fantastic. Love that. Love that so much. Now, what's something in your opinion that very few people are talking about in the land industry right now that we should be talking about?
Man, in the land industry, what we're not. So right now you're seeing the shiny objects of subdivides. You're seeing, I mentioned we have the fund coming. I've heard from like 7 or 8 other people, they have a fund coming in the last month. So, you're seeing these high level institutional moves kind of coming in. Like, how do I become a better developer? How do I become this? I think the things we aren't talking about as much as we probably should be is buying the asset that we're buying for less than it's worth and increasing our net worth there. And so, and I'm going to say that, but I'm going to segue into another piece here, is that we are getting greedy in a way that we have forgotten that most people make $50,000 a year across the board. That's what the average working, I think it's $57,000. The average working American that's full-time makes $57,000 a year. Now, if we take the step back and said, hey, can I focus on doubling that and just making $100,000 a year? What does that look like if I reverse engineer it? And am I super happy with that? Do we all need to make 7 figures? No, I mean, we're entrepreneurs. We want to work hard. We want to make money. So I get that. But we have to remember that we are living in a fallacy in a way that it's, we have to remember the world around us is not the way we see it. And so what may be we made 30 grand, let's move on kind of deal, to somebody, 30 grand changes their life. And I think if we could have that conversation, as land investors, and we see it from a more humble point of view versus how can I make 7 figures today? Justin Sliva made 7 figures this year. We can see it from that. I mean, I can tell you, we've done for the last 20 months, I have done over $1 million a month in revenue. I could brag you. I'll be like, oh yeah, big guy. But I'm going to ask you, how many people have I impacted positively during that time? And what have I done back with that money? And how can I create that karma or that energy or that cyclical piece? And what is that going to do for me, as a person or later on in life? And so it may not be, hey, I made back in the day when I was a land investor full time, I was making all this cash. It's going to be, hey man, you changed my life. And you did that because you took an opportunity on a deal with me. You taught me something I didn't know. You said, hey, look at it this way. We can do this deal. And that one deal may have been the catalyst. It may have been your 135 acres that sets you up for years to come. And I have watched people's life change with 2 or 3 deals. And I have watched people mess their life up after those 2 or 3 deals because they didn't stay humble and understand that, hey, I only need $5,000 a month to live off of. Can I keep that $5,000 and keep it compounding and keep working to help better? Am I helping a person get into an owner finance deal? Am I helping a partner get into a property that they wouldn't have been able to do because my personal financial statement's a little bit better than theirs? I have a banking relationship. I have a little bit of capital for the capital raise. What are those things I can do for me to help better those around me? And I think that, along with, that humbleness is not something we're talking about. And we need to be looking at that a little bit more.
Yeah, that is really powerful perspective. Absolutely. So I think that's a great segue into the next question that I have been thinking about is, what is your definition of success?
Man, so I might cry on this one. So I tell my wife, like, I will never know if I'm been successful or not. But if I die, somebody comes and tells my kids, oh, here I'm going, choking up. If I die, somebody comes in and tells my kids I impacted their life positively. And so that's my success.
That legacy.
Saying that for them.
Yeah, so that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I love that. What would you consider to be your superpower?
Besides talking fast, is I think I'm really good at making a decision. I'm quick at making a decision, yet I have empathy. So it may come off like I'm being brash, but empathetically, I think a certain way. And so I want what's best for you, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is when I say something on a decision. So I know that sounds like 2 different things, but when you put that together, I think that's what you get with You Get Me. So if you called me and said, hey, I want to do this deal, I don't go back and forth for 5 days with you on a deal. I look at the deal and I say yes or no. And I know there's people on here that have done deals with me, and I say yes or no. You can try to talk me out if I say no. And I'm like, hey man, I don't see it for you. Like I think at this price it works. This price, I just don't. And it comes off as brash, but I'm doing it empathetically in a way that, let's just cut through the bullshit and just be honest with each other. This is what I see. Now, I may be totally wrong. And I've had a person come back. And I still tell the story. We had one at our live event 2 years ago, and she goes, Justin, you didn't fund this deal for me. And it was like buy for 26. I saw comps at 40, 45. And I tell her, I said, hey, I see comps at 45. I think it's there. I think it's 45, maybe $50,000 property. I just don't see it well enough for me on this deal. And she says, okay, well, deal fell through that she had money in that she didn't need that money. Her money freed up. So she bought the deal at like 22, 25,000 and sold it for 65,000. She called me back and tells me, you know what, you were wrong on it. And I said, yeah, I'm glad you made money, but I'm going to be on a conservative side for that. So, she couldn't talk me into doing it at the time, but at the same time, she was able to be successful in that. And so when you say a superpower, I think it's that I'm willing to be empathetic, make a decision right then, but also think about the impact it may have on you.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really very, very cool. What is the biggest surprise that you've had so far on your journey in the land space?
Wow. Biggest surprise is that you can actually buy land so cheap. Like it's like so a quick backstory. My youth, I spent, I've had 2 stepdads. I just met my biological father here when I was late 30s. And so I used to go out to my grandparents. I call them grandparents. It was old step grandparents from back in the day. And there's a meaning to this. So, Grandpa Joe, I'll call him, his name is Joe, Grandpa. I call him Grandpa Joe. I don't know him as anything else, but he owned a vacuum cleaner store. in HEB area here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And he sold it in like 78, 79. So at that time, he bought a big ranch. He bought 640 acres and he used all that money. He's in Sunset, Texas. And I remember 82, 83, 84. We would go out there. I was small. I was 82. I was born in 82. So my mom would tell me, oh, the pond looks like Dr. Pepper is what she used to tell me. And so I'm 4 and 5 and 6, and I'm thinking Dr. Pepper pond. Well, they sold the 640 acres and bought a 50 acre. And then the 50 acre, they sold that and bought a 30 acre. My grandma passed away in 2000. What he was doing was land banking. He took an investment that he made. He sold a business, bought 640 acres, downsized, and used that money to live off of. So when I say we could buy land so cheap, and watching somebody actually use it as a retirement mechanism for them, they're just piecing it off, and it's in an asset that can't be taken away from you. And so that is the thing that's so surprising for me, is that we can mail it out and get this for so cheap and build our net worth so fast. And it's unreal to me.
That is incredible. Wow. So, hearing that story reminded me of your bio that I wanted to ask you about. And
okay.
So there's an item in there that says that you bought a $50.
Oh, you've never ridden Coffee Money Real Estate, I guess.
I haven't.
Okay.
Can you share with us?
Yeah. So
land.
yeah. So for the listeners, the Central Office of State Land in Arkansas has what's essentially a struck off list. And up until about 2 years ago, we crashed their website. They had to add a secretary, and then the website got crashed because we had so many people going to it and buying property. So basically they put up a list by county, and it tells you nobody bid on it, and it tells you the size, the APN and stuff. So you start clicking through it. And so what we would do is just, you had to write in bids. And so what I would do is I'd take a stack of 20 write-in bids, and I'd write in $50 on each one of them and mail them in. And they'd send me back the deeds, and I would buy them for $50. But then we'd put them on eBay for a quick claim deed, and we'd show no reserve, $4.99 doc fee. You can bid whatever you want, but I'm going to get $4.99 for it as a doc fee. Wow. And I had a girl that was full-time. That is all she did for me. And she would show up, and I would sign a bunch of deeds for her, and she would every as many one as she wanted to keep working. And so basically every day she was launching another deal on eBay. And so she would make $4.99 doc fees. We'd sell them for $1, $2, $3. And we did that until they changed the website to where now you have to bid online so other people can see what you're bidding. So it's changed a little bit. But, that was a great way for a lot of people to get started in this, because what I've seen being in the coaching space, and I don't talk sales because I don't do the sales for a course. I do basically problem solving when somebody comes through our course and they want to work through deals and partner with them. But what we saw was a trend of people don't tend to have like a big nest egg. And so that's why you see the real estate guru selling courses for how to real estate invest with no money out of pocket, and we all know that you got to drive leads cost money, whatever. So you got to be able to do that. So what Coffee Money did for a lot of people was allow them to buy, $500 worth of property, get 10 properties, and they sell it and they make 5,000 back. And so they do that a couple times. Now they have 10, 12, 15 grand to work with. We had a guy show up to our live event that had done 120 of them in 6 months, and his life had changed. He bought an 18-wheeler with the money, and he was driving trucks full time and flipping land on the side, just because he started with I think it was, he bought 5 for $250. He started with $250, bought his 18-wheeler and kept moving. And
that's incredible.
And that's so, again, when you say what's the thing you consider success, that to me is a success. That book that I wrote, there's like 19 pages long, put it on Amazon for $10. It changed that dude's life. And so we can talk about, I made $1 million, or we can say, hey man, I impacted his life. And what's going to happen is he's going to get married. He's going to have a kid. His kid's life is going to be better because we took the time to put a $10 book out, and he did the work. I didn't do shit, but put a book out. He followed it step by step and changed his life. I just got to be a part of that. And that's the cool thing for me. And so when you say so that's how the $50 properties work.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Talk about an impact, talk about a legacy. That's very, very cool. So let me ask you, what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
Ooh, that I've spent the last, I mean, if you've listened to our podcast, I spent the last 2 years kind of doing a lot of deep diving on myself, trying to understand what makes me tick, what is like a weight or a drain on me. And so I think that what I've come up with for myself is that I have started to identify what my creed is as a person. And like you see me mention, hey, what's my impact and things like that. I think that we have gotten to the world around us where most people don't have, and I'm gonna be a little sexist here. Most men don't have a creed for themselves. They'll go to the next shiny object. They bend it, just whatever. And I'm not saying my creed is perfect, but I think that if we can start as men, start to put that together, and that for me is when I've started identifying those things. Doesn't mean I don't have a drink with my wife. We go to a winery, we have a bottle or two of wine. I'm not saying like you have to be holier than thou. I'm just saying you have to be true to who you believe with, because at the end of all this, whatever religion you believe, you're going to have to answer for it in some way, whether it's karma or energy or whatever. And so for me, that impact comes from actually knowing what I'm good with and okay with, and living right by that, and cutting out those things that don't matter to me, or that don't impact me positively that way.
Yeah, man, that is incredibly powerful. And again, it's not surprising to hear it, because I think a common through line through our entire conversation today has been intention. There's just so much intention. There's so much design and your choices and your decisions and how you've done things. And it's just very, very cool to see. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. If you could go back and teach your younger self, or teach your teenage kids, or whatever it is, what would you teach them? What would you teach your younger self?
So I came from a family was my dad was a journeyman electrician. My stepdad that raised me was like 17, $18 an hour. My mom worked at Winn-Dixie, which is a grocery store. So making money work for you wasn't really a big topic in the house. I don't even know what my parents make today. I don't ask those questions. I was lucky enough. I had a cousin that was like, hey, here's rich dad, poor dad. If you want a hobby, make sure your hobby pays for itself, kind of lightly things. So early on, I tried to figure out how to make money work for me. Meaning, if I wanted a motorcycle, could I buy one and flip it and make enough money to do that enough times till I got the one? Or if I bought it, could I buy a motorcycle, ride it for a little bit, sell it for a little bit more, then keep rolling into them and end up owning one for free? And so by doing that type of flip and compounding effect, I would want to go back and tell people that it's okay to be patient and putting the money and the steps in place to compound. And that was the thing that I've said this so many times. And I for those that have heard it, I tell people, make your land money turn 3 times before you touch it. And the reason that is because if you can turn it 3 times, you're at a point now where you have an egg there that is going to spit off enough money that you can live with, and you can do other things with. Or you take that, like we talked about earlier, that short money, and you can turn it into long money that keeps paying you through these highs and lows, through the seasons of this land flipping journey you have. And so I would say be patient, because that was probably my biggest fault as a younger Justin. I was ready to go to the next position. I was ready to move. And we moved 7 times in 8 years when I was in the railroad, because I was accepting new positions to get a pay raise, to get the moving package, to get a promotion, to climb the ladder. And it worked because I'm here now. But at the same time, I wasn't patient, and I didn't understand that.
Wow. Yeah. And you mentioned it earlier. I think it's so easy for entrepreneurs to, be chasing the net, to be hungry. And there's so much, talk about like hustle culture and like got to be on the grind in the entrepreneurial space. So thinking about that, can you talk a little bit about like what types of, like, who are the entrepreneurs, who are the business owners? Are there any type of like financial influencers that you like to follow?
So I follow your typical ones. You got Uncle G, Grant. I follow their stuff, and Gary V. I like listening to some of the messages I'll see, but I don't get hung up on who the person is, because I think I've been let down so many times in the guru space with smoke and mirrors that it's very tough to want to follow somebody and be like, hey man, this guy's great. And then you find out that they haven't done deals in 5 years, or they tell you that, oh man, we do all these big deals. And then you you spend money with them to consult, and they can't even answer simple pointed questions. And, I'm very grain of salt when I see something. Now, that's not to say that I don't hear like Alex Hermosi say something that resonates with me, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great, but I would be curious to see what's behind the curtain in a lot of these people. And, you look at like David Goggins, who lost a bunch of weight, and he's like, get that inner bitch in you, it's the inner bitch talking right now. And that's, it's funny to hear that to me, because I heard somebody else do a meme talking about why we're following what seems like almost people with autism or autistic people in a way, because they're so direct in a way. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, because I think autism is a superhuman strength for a lot of people. It's like a Ferrari brain. And I love that. But we start to get mesmerized by this person because they're on a podcast, or they have really good video editing skills on Instagram, or they take great pictures, and they have hot chicks and big cars and nice watches. And then you get behind it and you get into the next level, and there's shit there. And so I'm sorry, I can't give you names and say, hey, this is a guy that I think is just solid, because I've been frankly let down so many times by this. And so, if you've come to know me over the last few years, I'm super transparent because I've been let down so many times in that space.
Well, it makes total sense in listening to your story and listening to, what some of your values are. The fact that you have, like I just kept hearing, that phrase that you used earlier about having that personal creed. And I think, when you have that kind of like an anchor, it's something that helps you to have that healthy perspective, and you are looking at different people, to take things with a grain of salt. So that's very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I just want to, we're coming to the end of the interview. I want to thank you so much for giving to us today. How can we give back to you right now? What resources or connections are you looking for currently?
Man, I don't know for me if there's any one thing. Like I love looking at deals and love looking at helping people. So if you have a deal you have a question on, even if you don't need me to fund it, don't be bashful about asking. I don't have the time to draw out a subdivision for you. But if you have a subdivision you're wanting to do and you got it drawn out and you're saying, hey man, just something doesn't seem right. If you want an extra set of eyes on it, I don't mind looking at it and helping. But, I would ask almost that if you run into people that need your help, be a little bit more, I guess, I'm gonna say empathetic is probably the wrong word, but be a little more willing to help with that abundance mentality, because and I'm gonna use this for instance, and I don't see the guy's name on here. I don't know the guy. He needed a deal funded, sends me an NDA to before he even sends me the information on a deal. And I look at that, I'm like, man, I've funded 500 plus deals in the last 2 years, 3 years. Why am I going to snake a deal for you and ruin a reputation? So let's think about this stuff. Now, the other side of that is people really do that, and this is business, and so you kind of watch that with a grain of salt. But I would challenge those. If you see something you need from me, please reach out, and I'm going to do the same as it comes up, because I don't want to waste everybody's time with, if you see a deal in Texas that looks good, call me. I'm not going to waste your time. I want to be very intentional with the time I spend with you and be to the point versus all the fluff. So yeah, I ask you to do the same.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. If someone wants to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that?
Easiest way is email Justin at casualfridaysrei.com. My catch-all is thelandmule@gmail. J_Sliva. Sorry, I got all my socials got hacked last year, so I'm rebuilding all those. But Instagram, I love looking at good memes and good videos. I have fun with that. So if you feel something you see, you feel free to reach out that way. But Casual Fridays, all the socials there, you can get a hold of me really quickly. And I'd say if you're in the DFW area and you haven't bought a ticket to our live event, you're definitely missing out. It's always a heck of a time.
Well, can you share with us a plug? Give us a plug for the event.
Yeah, so the funny thing to me is we've never once released the agenda before the show. Like you show up and you either trust us or you don't. And I love that aspect. But I love that every year I get reached out to by people that say, hey, what's on the agenda so I can decide if I want to come. If you have to know what's on the agenda to decide if you want to come, you don't need to come. And so, sorry, that's the way I feel about it. And I some of the names that I see up here have been multiple years, and and they've given us the feedback is this the best event for the money that is out there. And I appreciate that. And we work very hard to get that. And there's a reason why I don't have one all the time, is because we put a lot of thought and effort into it. But it is September 9th at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. That's a baseball stadium there. The Rangers are playing that game. So we'll kick off at 8 a.m. We have some fantastic speakers lined up. We'll have lunch that's included. You'll have some networking time at lunch, it's going to be 100 people. And then at about 4:30, we do a live podcast. You get to be a part of that and see that process. And then we move to our suite. It's called a party suite. It holds 100 people. It's on the first floor this year instead of the second. They say it's better view. So we open up all the doors. You can sit down and watch the game. You can eat, you can drink. It's all food, all drinks, everything is included. And then from there, usually game's over about 9:30 and you're well oiled at that point. We tend to go over to Texas Live and talk more business, shop, and land. And it continues to be a hoot through the early hours of the morning.
That sounds like a fantastic event.
Oh, it's been blast. This is the 5th one that we've done. Like I said, I said on a podcast last week, it'll sell out before July 1st. Like I said, there's 35 tickets as of this morning left. I don't know where we're at this afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much for joining us. Justin, you've been absolutely incredible. Wishing you much, much success in the future. Everyone, have a great week. We look forward to seeing you next week and talk to you soon. Everyone, be great. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you're interested in hearing from other 7-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at OnlyLandFans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.